Okay, thank you everyone for attending. This is Sherry Blanche. I am an account manager at Workamajig about 10 years, and just to make sure you're in the webinar that you anticipated, today we're going to go through the advanced deliverable use. And this will focus on some advanced setup options and assumes that you know the typical deliverable routing and review process. So again, this webinar today is on the advanced options for streamlining deliverable use and some additional details that can go along with deliverables. And again, my name is Sherry Blanche, and appreciate everyone taking time today to go through the advanced deliverable feature with me. So if you have questions during, you can type those into the QA panel. I'll open that occasionally. If you go into the chat, I will also try to look at chat now and then. So if you have questions that I'm going to be going over still, I'll just hold off until I answer those, but I'll pause occasionally to go through some questions as well. And at the end of this session, we do now also have a survey for the webinars at the end. So if you have a few minutes, we really appreciate feedback, what other topics you'd like, what you expected that I didn't cover, or other, you can give your feedback to us as well. We're trying to make these very useful for your time. We know how valuable that is. So again, my name is Sherry Blanche. Appreciate everyone being here, and we'll go through the advanced deliverable use and process, not the basic, but the advanced options and setup. So I have a few pages open that we'll talk about as well. But one of the main things we want to look at today are some additional options that are available to turn on in the system setup for your deliverables to use and streamline some, especially if you use deliverable routing and a lot of files, a lot of file types that you're trying to process and manage. We have some options to set up on the system that will help streamline that process. So I'm going to start in the transaction preferences, and I kind of had this open already, so I'll back up to show you those that would have the rights to go into your system setup. As an administrator, I am starting here in system setup and transaction preferences to begin with, because we're going to look first at the deliverable preferences. Now, there are a lot of additional options in here that go along with the basic routing and approval, but I'm going into these advanced options that say we want to use to-do items and to use statuses and types with our deliverables, and also one to enter time. And at the end, I'm going to show an example of how we can report on time to deliverables specifically. So if that's something you'd like to align, you can turn that on as well. So these are some options I've turned on here. I do also have some options in the project that I have. So we do want to use to-do items also that show up related to the project schedule. I have labeled what we call key people fields, and this is also going to relate to how we define some automated approval notify steps within a deliverable based on these key people fields. These can be labeled however you need. Again, they are global across all projects, and they do become a drop-down menu of who you set up as each of these key people. These are in addition to our account manager, client account manager, or project account manager. And we do also have project manager field that is visible. So you might have both used. Some only have account manager field visible by default, but there are two options that can be used in projects that can be different assigned account and project managers. So that's the first area we're going to look at to enable some of those options. Once those are enabled, we will be able to create then these statuses for our deliverable types and our deliverable statuses. And we'll talk a little bit more about these as we get out into the actual deliverable board and go into an automated system for who these need to go to. So in here again, these can be defined as you want them. So they can be for your processes. And again, everything I am showing today doesn't necessarily mean it's a feature you want to turn on. Don't overcomplicate the process if it's working as it is set up currently without all of these additional statuses and types and so forth. So if you have some pretty streamlined options to efficiently route your deliverables just via, for example, team subscriptions, if that is fine and that's enough, then I'm not saying that it's necessary to turn all these on, but I will be showing you how they relate to deliverables so you can decide, is this going to be something that will make it more efficient for us? Again, you don't want to overcomplicate it if it's not really necessary. So these are the two main areas. I also have this deliverable type, and this is one of the things I'll be just defining and showing, because this really is going to use our project standard and key people fields, and also what services are assigned to that project to help us automate this approval process. So deliverable types, what's nice is that I can come in and it's basically templated for you to then say that it's similar to, as you know, projects that have assigned services. We don't yet know who those people are, but we know who's later will be assigned to specific services and or key fields that are managing the project. So I have the ability with types to come in and assign the approvers based on either services. So if I have a videographer, maybe they're an approver, or depending on what type we're in, this one right now is called logo. I have added these services. I can also use those key people fields. So my account manager, my project manager, those are standard fields, but then I have and then these are also standard project fields, but these are those labeled key people fields that I defined in my system setup. So even before I have a project completely assigned to these, I can say I want the lead designer on the approval process, or legal, or whatever you term those key people. And I can have these preset in my approval and my notify step from either a service, key people, not just team. Maybe I don't know the team yet. So again, I get to predefine these even before I know who those people might be on any specific project. The other thing we can do in addition to editing these, and again, here I have a different approval, and I just click in here to say key people and or services. So it can be both, a mix of both. And again, we're assuming you already know these other basic settings of how they route. Do they go to everyone in order? Does everyone have to review, or does it stop once it's rejected or so forth. So we're, again, on this call, assuming you know all of the details of the basic routing of deliverables. So now we're really just focusing on predefined approval process. I can also in here have custom fields. So you can create custom fields that relate to specific deliverable types. For example, on the video type, I just created a custom field for length. Again, if you're not familiar with custom fields, it's the same here as it would be regardless of where we define those out here, except now we are defining them on the deliverable itself, and then deciding how we want that drop-down menu, what options we want. So those can be on your deliverables as well. And we can now report based on those deliverable custom fields. And again, what custom fields you need and what types, that's specifically up to you and your workflow and your whole industry of what types of file reviews that you need. You can put descriptions in here. You can also color code these. And this just means I am using this deliverable type at the moment. You know, it's like just like any status or type, you can have them active and later inactivate ones that you no longer need. So let me see. Oh, no questions. Okay, great. So that's all in our system setup. Once we turn on in some transaction preferences, then we can assign the key, define those key people fields. And then in my global lists, I can come in and define these statuses and types that I might want to be using. All right, so we might come back to this in a little bit. Of course, your preferences for deliverables as a whole can have default instructions and whether you want internal and client review steps and so forth. So again, that's some basic one-on-one deliverables that we also have some details on if you need that. So I'm out here on my project page. When we're using a lot of deliverables, one thing that we would suggest is that on your views, system-wide, if you're an admin, and or individual display options, that you would come in and set up that you would want to see in that grid your open deliverables and your to-dos. So we have abilities in these. This is an administrator function here at the moment that says we want to see open deliverables, key people fields. Maybe we want all of the key people or the ones you're using, open to-dos. So these are options that can be showing on your display here, which is nice because I can quickly come into this and drill right into my deliverable board from my project page. And it then relates to whichever one I clicked on, and it has it pre-filtered for this project and these deliverables that I see open on my project. So while you're managing these, it would be a good idea to come in and have these views to quickly come in and open up these to-do and open deliverable fields. And we're going to look at this some more, the actual using the to-dos with deliverables and adding time. But this is a nice view to have and add to your pages so that you can easily be managing those as a whole. Now, as you may know, we do also have for project managers out here, and I'm going a little bit over the general management of all deliverables first, and then we'll go into using those types and predefined approvals. We have on your project manager page the daily status of deliverables. So if you're not familiar with that, it is a quick view of those that are in process currently, that are open, that we need to see some statuses on. And then we do also have the overall view of deliverables. So these are like your reports. They are views of all the data with your customizable filters that you can create. Here is that custom field that I created on my video deliverables that I can filter by and or show. So again, it's nice to note that we can quickly use the deliverable custom field while we're trying to manage and report on them as well. Let me just come in here. I'm not sure. I'm going to have way too much in here to begin with, but one thing I do like to recommend, and often if you have not been in your deliverable overall view yet, or very often, and you're starting to use these, one thing I always like to say is in order to really see this, there are two fields that are very similar: approval status and approver status. Approver status shows you who are the approvers and where are they at with each of those people on that current step and round. So you can see this is the approval, overall approval. It's in review or it's approved with changes. This is all of the approvers that are still on it, that are waiting, reviewing. And so you can see all of this and customize as well more information that you want to see. But I do always say, if you don't have this already in your deliverable view, I would add it to have it, modify it at approver status, because it's also a quick view into that. Where is it? Who still has it in their pending approval bell and that we're kind of waiting on. And of course, there are a lot of reminders that you can send out as well related to deliverables. All right. So that's a quick overview of some global looks at where are our deliverables, daily deliverable status. There is an employee notification that can be turned on as well to send out an email. So if you work heavily in your email, whether you get all those here or in your email or both, that is a setting that you can decide. But you can also have this sent out as an email, and it's an employee notification set up to say, I want to see a daily deliverable status emailed to me based on some settings there. So, all right. So one thing we're going to look at here is using that type. So I have a project called that, Deliverable Types, and what we're going to do is first look at those fields that have populated now, who the project manager, so I have myself as the account manager, David Test as a project manager, and then you can see here I have, I tried to name them kind of silly, my lead designer, my videographer, my legal review. Now, again, based on which type of deliverable I have, maybe I use some of the fields, but not all of the fields related to what type it is. The other thing we're looking at is also the service. So if we have photography, graphic design, the service here, who is the person that's providing a specific service that we relate to on that type. And if we look again at which type we're using and how that's predefined, we'll see those automatically populate when I create a new deliverable. Now, one thing I want to mention about types is that you do want to assign the type when you create the deliverable. It is one of the fields that you cannot update after the fact. So you can't create a deliverable and then later go back and assign type. It has to be defined in the beginning when you're creating it. So to start with, what I'm going to look at first, we're going to come back into this system setup, and we're going to look at which type we're going to create and use so that we can see those fields populated. So on this one, we have I'll use the photo image, and you can see for the internal approval, we're going to use the account manager. That should populate me, the graphic design, photography, the lead designer. And then we have project manager in the notify. In the second, this is also an internal step that I added after the first internal step. On this one, I have added that I want the legal review and the account manager notified. So we're going to be using this type for photo and image. And I'm going to pop back. And if you're not familiar, if you're on a Mac, you can hold down the Command key to open up multiple tabs. If you're on a PC, you can hold down Control-click to go into different areas and have them open up to toggle between. Just a little side note. Okay, so we're going to pick the type photo image. Oops, I should spell things right here. Okay, now it defaults to the first status. That's based on the setup. I could also, if I needed to, I could also assign this to a task specific. So depending on if we have things in the schedule that relate to where a deliverable is, sometimes people have schedules for internal round 1, round 2, round 3, client round 1, 2, 3. You can also assign these to a task. If you do that, that will relate out here to what task we're on. My task out on my board right now is 3. So for this one, I will go ahead and, assign it to the task that I have out on my creative today so we can see that. Okay, so I will save that. And what we will now see based on that is that I automatically populated my approvers. So using that type, you can see my internal review picked up me as the account manager. And then it also used my graphic design, photography, and lead designer based on how the project is set up here. And my notify is my project manager. My legal review also used the key people field to say, well, who is the legal person, key people on this project? And then it notified me as the account manager. So that automated all the setup. Now, I could still come in if I needed to, and I could still say, well, I want to add some other people in here that weren't on those fields, and I need to add them to a specific step. That's fine. You can still edit after the fact, but you can see how efficient it made creating this deliverable to automatically put everyone in here for me. Now I'm going to just grab an existing file that I have in here. I don't know. I always kind of like this. We'll grab that one and add the Jeep. And of course, then when we send it for review, that goes out. And if I review my creative today again out here, we'll see now that if we refresh that, I'm going to have an additional deliverable that I just created that is now open on my task that I assigned that to. And if I'm out on my main project page out here, and I refresh this, it will also show that I now have a new open deliverable that was just created on this project for me. And it's going to assign that to that new status for me. So here's my new deliverable. Any questions? Everyone's really quiet. I don't see questions. I don't see chat. Okay, good. And of course, QA is great if you do have any questions. Now, we did talk for a moment about the fact that if you are not using types and by using your key people and services, You may not know that you do have the ability also to have the team subscribed under the deliverable approval or notify step. So if you don't need the advanced setup of deliverable type and status and key people and add these based on who's on the project, you could just come into your team subscription, and some of you may not realize that, and you can have people automatically for this project be in a notify or approval step for you. And that is another way to streamline that process so that every time you don't have to come in and just pick manually each approval notify person that you want on that. Now, when we are using this, we have the ability now to be on our deliverable board. And then we will still talk about the to-do items in a moment. But this still has my filter from when I open this from my project page. I can look at this now by client. Maybe I don't want just one project. Maybe I want to see all of the deliverables for this client and where they're at. So again, there's my color-coded little symbols. This is the Kanban board. So you can move these across these statuses if you wish. I'm going to put back in my deliverable type, if I can find that project again. So I could narrow it down to just one project, but it is nice because I can also see it across the campaign. Let me just see if I can find my, okay. So if I have a campaign with multiple projects, different deliverable types within each, I can also manage it as a whole in that campaign. So if you're not using campaigns, the reference here is that when you go into a project, and you can see when I click one project, it also then just filters by that. But if I'm going to take that out for a minute. That is looking at our overall campaign here. And as you know, you can have deliverables at the overall campaign level, or so you can have them living out here. And maybe you have a deliverable for a logo that relates to every single project within it. So maybe you have some media, you have web development, you have some collateral pieces, you have an event. You can have an overall deliverable that relates to every single project within, or of course you can have each project that has its own deliverable independent to that one project. So what's nice here on my deliverable dash is that I can say, show me all of those across every project within that campaign, regardless of whether that lives at the campaign level or the individual project level. These are similar to any of our status pages. You can collapse or expand. I can also come into a grid view. So what's nice here is I can get that card view. I can drill into that review one by one if I need to, go in and review comments, or I can be here on this grid view to quickly see and group it by status, by project, by due date, by owner, or whatever I want to group it by. Currently grouped by status. And then we can also see this in a date format. Now my dates are based on deliverable due date, and I'm trying to think, mine were back a ways in September, because we were doing some things at the boot camp. So I can see the due date. Now that's the overall due date that I have set on the summary detail. Remember, each step within a deliverable has its own dates that are driving it. So each step within each round might have some dates, but this is the overall due date that I can see here on my calendar view. Now, the other thing is this is similar to any mass view. I can come in here and I can be editing some detail. I can duplicate a deliverable from here, and I can be doing some views from here, print this to Excel or PDF if you have a reason to do that. So there are some quick ways to be selecting and changing information. So if I select this and I change this to a different status or what have you, it would change it across all of these. Now we also see this conversation. Conversations can tie to that deliverable and task as well. And that can be within. Now, of course, the comments that we're going to look at can also be creating what we call that to-do list. So we're going to look at that piece in a deliverable as well. And I'm going to also come in back to that Creative Today, because the comments being tied to a to-do list, which we can see here, is the transaction preference I showed in the beginning that said we want to use the to-dos on our deliverable. So what we'll be able to see is this list of what we took as comments and turned into an actionable to-do list on a deliverable. So we're going to look at this and see how that comes into play. Now, these are all of the deliverables that we created that are assigned to this task. I can move it forward to the next task if I need to. So again, whether you align your deliverables to a status only or to a task only, that would be up to you. There would be times when maybe the schedule itself is, the tasks are still different than what we want to see in statuses, and we want to use both. We want to be able to use a status for our deliverable process, and we also want it assigned to the schedule, or do we just want one or the other? So if we look at the comments here, of course you can annotate. If you, by the way, if you don't have these additional tools on your annotation, that's just a system setting, and it's just an option to use these advanced tools. So if you only see arrow, box, and then if it's a PDF word saved as PDF, you'll see strike through and highlight. If you don't have those on, you can turn those on here. There are some other settings to turn on with your system setting if you wish. This is a newer one, replace text with PDFs, and I can show that as well in a minute. So if we have our tool and we say, we save our comment and we have multiple comments where we're highlighting something. Whoops. What they use, let's see, did those save? Let's see if I save those. I think I forgot to save some of my comments. Sorry about that. Let's just say, Seems like it's, of course, it's going to give me issues since I'm on a webinar, right? Okay, so change this. There's my first comment. May have had too many windows open for a long time. I've been in here for a while this morning. So I'm going to mark this up. Let me see if I can get these to save. All right, seems like it's saving now. The use to-dos is giving me this option. I can add this as a fix this. Now, maybe you have some comments that just say, I like this, you know, it looks nice, whatever, just very general, nothing to do. There's really just a general comment. It lets you come through somebody with the authority to say, well, we're going to agree that we really need to fix this. So you can see when I click on the fix this, it tells me it's currently on this development task. I know that doesn't make sense. You have to excuse my test instance. It's should be probably an edit task, revision task. I just happen to pick a schedule that just has, you know, development. And since this is on my today page, I'm going to leave it on there. But the to-do, I am using statuses also with my to-dos, which you could just have it open and closed. But you can see that on here, I have myself and Danny on that task assignment. Maybe I want to add a new task in here instead of using an existing, and I want to call it a revision task. And I put in there what start date. Is it following another task or is it just on its own? And then who's going to be assigned to that? I'll assign myself. And then how many hours do you want them to be revising this? So I can add another task as well. And that will assign that follow-up work to a new task that you've created. So I can see that that's in progress. This one I'm not going to do anything with. And this one I'm also going to say, let's turn this into an actionable item. As you know, you can go through comments by date, by page, by person, go in and look at all of them. But again, I can quickly see that these are turned into actionable items. And I can see that. Now, here's where you can create that conversation as well if you want to, and that would tie into that project page. Now, if I refresh this, I have these open to-do items on some existing, and then I also have a new task that's assigned. Now I need to look at that schedule to see, because here's my revision task that I assigned myself. And I don't know, it may have also assigned a predecessor. So I'm going to take that off just so that we can see on here that new task populate for me without waiting for the, oh, I know why. It's also related to my open to-do items, open deliverables, and specific details here that I have that have refreshed that schedule. So let's see, we have a revision task, but the part of the reason is that my deliverable is assigned here and not at my revision task assignment. So that is part of the reason currently. I don't see it right at the moment because it's not specifically assigned to the overall deliverable. So if I open that up now and I then go into my my deliverable by type. There's my new revision task and my open to-do list. So the reason I initially turned on this to say only open deliverables, only open to-do items, this will relate to the assignment of the deliverable to a specific task. So if you are using the overall task assignment for managing your deliverables, this works very well for your creative to narrow down only those that are currently on their task, whatever task of the schedule that might be. If you're not doing that, then you would not want them to have this open deliverable only. This would be fine because it's still just going to find assignments that have that open to-do list. And then which ones are relating to the actual, task itself would be this information. So I hope that makes sense. Again, how these are filtered, what we're seeing, what date range, etc., would make a difference on what's showing up here or not, whether it be the task card or the grid view. So again, back at my dashboard, if I'm on a campaign, I don't get the option to search by task because the campaign does not hold the task information. If we are here and we are looking at it by project, now I have the ability to then filter for those specific tasks. So you can see here that I can see this based on the task itself and where am I and what task is it on. So again, when we're on our deliverable Kanban, how I see these, where I see these, whether I'm filtering it by task, by project. Let's do our type. And again, if I do it by type, can I see it by the task itself? So remember, the overall deliverable is assigned to this development task, but the to-do items that I added to the comments is assigned to a review task. So here, if I needed to, I could move the deliverable itself over to a different task. These are drag drops, so you can do this. And then when we looked at that deliverable, we can see it moved to a review task. Let's see, no questions. All right. Now, the person that's doing revisions, needing to see what they have to do, they can come in here. They can add some notes to this. They can add an attachment. They can come in and add a comment. I thought this would be, better, and, email the comment if they want to, or just save it as a comment for someone to see. And then they can move that to their status. If you're not using to-do statuses, so it's similar, you have it, deliverable status, to-do status. If you're not using this, it would just be an open closed. If we have custom fields on those to-dos, those can show up. Here's what's nice as well. I'm in my task card. I can go right to the deliverable. I can look at all the comments and the views and what's been turned into that little to-do list and so forth. I can download the file. If we have multiple rounds, I can compare those rounds. This one only has one round, but I do have the comparison if there's multiple rounds. So it's nice because I can go in from my task card and see all the details from here. I can go into the deliverable board from here to see them all. So there's quick drill downs without ever having to leave my creative today. Just coming right in and going right into the to-do list or the deliverable board and seeing everything at a glance quickly and easily. So here's my to-do list of what I need to be doing on each of those deliverables. Click into those, go into the actual view, take a look at that, add my comment, and complete my list of edits. Now, the other thing we turned on was add time to deliverable. Now I have 2 open deliverables now on this development task. So if I said I spent an hour on that, I can assign the time to the specific deliverable. So it lets me do time to a deliverable for a report on show me how much time was spent for reviewing and editing each deliverable itself. So you get that ability right here to now pick from those deliverables that are on that. If I'm on my revision task, oh, I think I turned it to review. If I'm on my review task, how much time did I spend on that deliverable? So I can add that specific time entry to the deliverable for reporting. And you see that if I am just opening up the deliverable here, I also have a quick ability to go into that deliverable, and I can add time here as well. So there are a couple different ways. I know some people are used to adding time from the time card. Others add time through a timesheet, but I do also have the ability right in the overall deliverable to go in and add a time entry that way. And if we assign it to the deliverable itself, we can see that discussion that relates right to this task and deliverable. Now, one of the things I noted early on was that you can get buried. There's a lot of different setups here that we're looking at, using deliverable types, using deliverable statuses, to-dos, to-do statuses, key people. So you do have to note that things have to be assigned correctly in order to see them in manners that we're seeing them here. So again, you would want to make sure that you're assigning and aligning your deliverables in a way that makes sense for you so that you can find and see them as a creative or as an overall project manager for saying, where are our deliverables for this project or this client or this campaign, so that you can quickly see where are they in the process, what's finished, what's not finished, what's completed, and so forth. So we're going to look at a report that I created as well, because we talked about adding time to the deliverable itself. And again, keep in mind, these are drag drop. So if these are moving along a process, you can drag drop them into different statuses. And then you can come in here and start a whole new deliverable from here as well. So just some quick details of seeing that information a certain way. But what I did here is I created a time report. And by the way, if you're not familiar, you can create a conversation to yourself, put some links in there like I did here, so I can quickly get into my deliverable detail, I just created a standalone conversation. These become an activity. I made it a favorite. I put some links in here so that I could quickly come in and open up my deliverable time report. If I did not come into the link from that activity I created, I would come here to my Everyone Report Center, and I would search for my deliverable time detail report. The other thing is we do have the favorites that you can, once you toggle any report and you star that report, it becomes a favorite until you come in and unstar that report. So just some little side notes to help you. So here is my deliverable time report that I created. I'm just going to search everything because I know I don't have that much currently in there. But you can see that I grouped it by type. These down here don't have a type assigned. These are my logo video type. And then I have the number of hours in person that I have also then turned around and created a pivot for. So I can create a pivot based on any of this information. Here's my actual deliverable name and my hours. And your pivot table can be collapsed, and it can also be turned into a graph to quickly see that information. So if you are not familiar with the custom reports, the creating pivot tables within a custom report and so forth, you could also create this as a custom graph on one of your management pages or your user pages to have them quickly see how much time am I spending for the review or revision. I did not put currently the task information in this report, but you could have the task name in here as well. Was it revision? Was it review? Was it round 1? Was it round 2? I did just decide to pivot it this way by type and username. So your account manager would be happy to go in more detail with custom reports and graphs and so forth. But when you add time specific to a deliverable, it will be nice to do a kind of a regroup. See when you're creating project templates and deliverables and timelines, what average amount of time do we want to make sure that we add for these items, because we need to make sure that we're allowing the specific time that these are taking based on what type of deliverable it is, or, you know, so forth. So it can give you a lot of that data to then come in and know the information based on how you want to see it and how you want to then go forward. Maybe you come in, hopefully some of you are using a lot of the report data to come in and refine templates, refine the scope of work so that every time you copy templates in, you have a good key understanding of the amount of hours and services that those are taking. And that would include time to review and edit deliverables. So any questions? I'm going to open it up and see if you have some questions of some areas I did not go over. We do record these. The recording will be posted to our support guide fairly soon. I don't remember how long it takes. I'm going to show you how to pop into this so that you can come back to review any recording that is related here. And by the way, I just came into my login name, the more and the help guide. If you're not familiar with opening that up quickly, that's one way. Of course, you can bookmark the support.workamajig.com. The webinars are here, upcoming, previous, recorded. So here's the upcoming. Pretty soon we'll have this advanced deliverable. There are a couple other ones that we've done previously, and there are also Deliverable 101. If you're not familiar with the typical deliverable routing and setup, that's in here as well. It might be in 2021. But just note that you can come in anytime and review these recordings that we put up and click into those and see those recorded. So I do have a question. Yay, first question of the day. You get the prize. The difference between client versus internal review, check marks. That's a great question. So first thing is that if we do an internal and a client review step in a deliverable, and let me just come over here. The client external review step within a deliverable does not see the internal comments. So if you have set up a deliverable, and let me see if I can find one. I think the one I just did. I can find my new one. Oh, I was going to show something here too, by the way. So if you do a deliverable that has both an internal and a client, one thing to note is that this client review with a client reviewer who's going to approve it, if you do it in the same round, and only if this internal review is approved would it go out to a client. Now there is an option here to say pause this after the internal approval, and we're going to collect these and send them out to the client all at once. But the difference between internal and client is strictly that internal is almost always set up with only internal reviewers, approvers. Client obviously has a client approver, and this person that's a client does not see any of the comments here. Now the to-do, I think the question also related to the check marks on a deliverable. If you're referring to the actual comments and check mark, there wouldn't be any difference. If we're out here and there's comments on this and it's internal review versus client review, it wouldn't matter. The fix this will work the same whether it's things that need revised after an internal review or things that need fixed and revised after the client review. These would be the same fixes. Most of the time, a client is really just giving feedback and giving their approval. And if they have not and it's rejected, obviously we say things need fixed and that gets sent back to a designer. Either they're notified or these are turned into a to-do list on their actual task that's assigned. I think I answered your question. Does that, you can say yes or no and ask me to expand further if that did not answer your question. But if you mean this check marks and fix this, it'd be the same whether it's internal or client. The biggest difference again, yeah. So yes, clients outside of the organization can send back comments and for the revisions, correct. Now, if somebody internal would have to come into their comments and review them when the client rejects that deliverable and says, no, we need to fix this. And somebody would need to still come in and turn those into an actionable item for the designer. Now, those that don't use to-do items and fix this, what they do is they often say, well, a project manager is still going to go through all the review and the comments, and they're going to go ahead and either just communicate with the designer, hey, take a look, we marked up the changes, go make them. We trust that you'll know which ones are just comments and which ones really need to be done. And so you don't necessarily have to use the fix this. This is more concrete. If you have a process where you say, we notify the designer, if it's rejected, they get notified. If it's approved, they get notified. If it's rejected, they go in, they look at markups, and they come in and they say, I see what I need to change. And we're going to just change all the things that somebody marked up. So it can be one or the other. But yes, if you do a client review step, we do have some that don't put it as a second step within a round. What they do is they only do internal deliverables. And then once they're done here, they come into the project. Let me come back in here. And they come in to the dashboard and they collect all of those final files. They organize them into a folder called final files. They know that they're finished and completed, and they route them all out at once to the client as a whole new deliverable. Some do that instead of internal, external step within one round. And again, that's a little more of the 101. I was going to just show a note that when you save a PDF, Word as a PDF, and you have your strike through, we do now have the quick highlight and strike through. And with the strike through, you have the ability to turn on the replace this with this that you can use. And that's some system settings again here that you can, and I think there's one more setup area I need to go into, but we do have a thing where if you highlight Word save this PDF that you can actually have that replace this or change this, and it will automatically add that terminologies so you can type in the change that you want. And we can help further with that. Okay, so one more question we'll answer and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Let's see. So what interface? The interface for the client looks just like this, by the way. Now, obviously, they don't go in, add tasks, see the fixes, but when one thing we recommend internally, and that's a transaction preference. If I'm a client and you send out a deliverable for my review, I don't have to have a login. I can click on the link and it opens up what we call just a deliverable view for them. You can, some do have clients with logins and require logins, in-house, but if not, the setup typically in the preferences here is to require login for internal, not for client, because then when I send out a file to a client, they click on the link, it opens up and looks the same as it does here. Let me see if I can get back to my deliverable. It looks just like it does here, where it just opens up that deliverable view to make comments and annotate. And they get this view right here without a login. So it just opens a view. They come in, they make comments. They don't get to compare rounds. They don't get to see internal comments, but they do get to come in and say, oh, I want you to change this or that. And then they come in if they're the actual approver, obviously, and they also say, I approve or we need changes. And that would route back to whoever gets notified to then come in and make sure those revisions get done. So the client view looks just like this, but they don't have a main menu. They don't go into any other areas. They just open the deliverable and make markups and comments based on your setup. Now, we do always say, do not forward emails to another person that has the links, whether it's especially deliverable, but any email that you get from Workamajig, do not forward. There's a big warning that says, don't forward your email. It is your email. It is tied to your username. We do have invite others. And again, this is part of the kind of the basic deliverable process. If you say, I need somebody to just come in and make comments, they're not on the approval notify options, but I need them to see it, you can do that. You can say invite others, sends them an email, they open up the link, they make a comment, period. That's it. So invite others, comment only, no approval decision. There's that option as well. So, okay, well, thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate you being here today. And again, if you have a minute to go over the survey, let me know what was not covered that you expected, what other topics you'd like to see in our webinars, things like that. Really appreciate any feedback. And I hope everyone has a very happy holiday and rest of your week. And I will go ahead and wrap up the call. And if you want additional help, if you have some questions, of course, reach out to support@workamajig.com. Your account manager can set up any follow-up calls or help answer specific questions that you have. And again, thanks for all your time and have a great rest of your week and holiday weekend. Bye.